I remember the exact moment everything stopped feeling secure, and it wasn't even happening to me. I was standing in my kitchen, phone pressed between my shoulder and ear, stirring something I wasn't really paying attention to. On the other end, her voice sounded different. Not dramatic, not panicked, just thinner somehow, like something underneath it had quietly cracked. She laughed at something I said, but it came half a second too late, and I knew. I didn't know what exactly, but I knew something wasn't right, because this was someone who never sounded uncertain. She was the one people went to for advice, the one who always had a plan. Her life ran on structure, confidence, and this calm sense of, I've got it handled. And for years, I believed that meant she was safe. A few months before that call, I had been sitting across from her at a small table, watching her scroll through her phone while talking about a trip she had just booked. It wasn't even the trip that stuck with me. It was how casually she talked about it, like it was nothing. Flights, hotel, reservations, all done in one sitting, no hesitation. She didn't even check her balance, just tapped, confirmed, moved on. I remember thinking, that's what I want, that ease, that freedom. There was something so reassuring about the way she lived. Bills paid without stress, plans made without overthinking, a life that felt stable. At least that's what it looked like. Oh, the first real crack didn't look like a crisis. It looked like a canceled dinner. We had plans, nothing fancy, just something we'd been talking about all week. And an hour before, she texted, "Hey, can we rain check?" Something came up. Totally normal, right? But then it happened again the next week, and the week after that. And it wasn't just plans with me. It was everything, small things, easy things, things she would have never hesitated about before. At one point, I joked, "You're becoming hard to book these days," and she just smiled, but didn't answer. That was the first time it felt real. About 3 minutes into one of our conversations, this one I remember clearly, we were sitting side by side, not really facing each other. She had her hands wrapped around a mug that had already gone cold. She kept turning it slightly, like she was trying to line up the handle perfectly. And then she said, very quietly, "I think I messed up." It wasn't dramatic. There were no tears, just that sentence. "I think I messed up." I didn't even know what to say at first, so I just waited, and after a few seconds, she exhaled and added, "I built a life that only works if everything keeps going right." That sentence landed in a way I wasn't prepared for, because I knew exactly what she meant. She started explaining, not in a rushed way, but like someone finally admitting something they'd been holding in for a while. Her income had dropped, not completely, but enough to shift things. And suddenly, all the things that felt manageable before weren't anymore. The rent that once felt comfortable started to feel heavy. The subscriptions, the payments, the commitments, everything added up in a way it hadn't before. And the scariest part, there was no backup plan, no cushion, no space to breathe. I remember looking around her place that day. Everything still looked the same. Nothing about it screamed something is wrong. But that's what made it unsettling, because from the outside, nothing had changed. But underneath, everything had. She told me something that stayed with me. "I always thought if I could just earn more, I'd be fine," she said. "So every time I made more, I just adjusted my life to match it. Bigger expenses, better things, more comfort, but no margin, no room for things to go differently." And I realized, sitting there, that I had been quietly doing the same thing. Not to the same extent, but the mindset was there. Every time things got a little easier financially, I allowed myself to stretch a little further, upgrade something, add something, commit to something, without really asking, what happens if this changes? There was a moment later that day that I don't think she even realized mattered as much as it did. Her phone buzzed while we were talking, and she glanced at it. Her whole body tensed for a split second, just a notification. But the reaction, it wasn't about the message. It was about what that message might mean. A payment reminder, a charge, something unexpected. That small moment said more than anything else. that's when I understood what financial stress actually looks like. It's not always big, dramatic breakdowns. Sometimes it's that quiet tension when your phone lights up. On my way home, I didn't turn on any music. I just drove in silence, and I kept thinking about one question. If something shifted in my life tomorrow, would I be okay? Not comfortable, not thriving, just okay. And for the first time, I didn't immediately say yes. That question stayed with me for days. It showed up in small moments when I was about to buy something, when I was making plans, even when I was just thinking about my routine. And slowly, it started changing the way I made decisions. I stopped thinking only in terms of what I could afford right now and started thinking about what I could sustain. Those are two very different things because something can feel affordable in a moment and still be unsustainable over time. I also started paying attention to how often I relied on things staying the same income, the same flow, the same stability. But life doesn't promise that. Things shift unexpectedly, quietly, sometimes all at once. There was a kind of wake-up moment in all of this, but it wasn't loud or overwhelming. It was calm, clear, almost uncomfortable in how simple it was. I realized that financial freedom isn't about how things look. It's about how secure you feel when no one is watching, when there's no performance, no appearances to maintain, just you and the reality of your situation. A few weeks later, I saw her again, and she felt different. Still herself, but softer in a way, more aware, more intentional. She had started making changes, cutting things back, reworking her priorities, and she said something that stuck with me just as much as the first conversation. I wish I had paid attention sooner, she said. Not when things got hard, but when they were easy. That line stayed with me because that's when most of us don't think about it. When things are flowing, when nothing feels urgent, that's when we assume we're safe. But safety isn't something you feel only when things are going well. It's something you build so that when things don't go well, you're still standing. That experience didn't make me anxious about money. It made me honest. Honest about my habits, honest about my assumptions, honest about the gap between what I thought was stable and what actually was. And I think that's the real lesson. It's not about fear. It's not about restricting yourself or living in constant worry. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that earning more is only one part of the picture. What you keep, how you manage it, how prepared you are, that's what creates real stability. Now, when I make decisions, I still think about what I want, but I also think about what I'm building. Is this something I can carry long term? Or is this something that only works under perfect conditions? Because the truth is, most of us don't expect things to go wrong, but that doesn't mean they won't. And being prepared doesn't mean you're pessimistic. It means you're grounded. If there's one thing I took from watching her go through that, it's this. You don't need to lose everything to learn how to protect what you have. You can learn from what you witness, from what you observe, from the quiet moments that make you pause and rethink. And maybe, like me, there's a question sitting somewhere in the back of your mind now. If things changed, would I be okay? Sit with that, not to scare yourself, but to understand yourself. Before we end, I'd really love to hear from you. Has there ever been a moment, something you saw or experienced that changed how you think about money? Something that made you pause and look at things differently? Share it in the comments. I read them and I genuinely appreciate hearing your stories. And if this gave you something to think about, something to reflect on quietly, then this space is here for you. Don't forget to subscribe to GistOver Cooking. I'll see you in the next one.